You gotta put an extra computer, they told, my daughter told me, and then it,
Well, you have to have
Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
Oh, you don't have that? Oh, okay. Well, then you wouldn't get it. Huh? Well, I don't know.
Put it in here. You don't need that.
You would think you could, pick it up here, cause County's got it.
I got it on now.
Mine's got little things, just press the middle one and it'll go black.
17 different times.
Nothing, I think.
Way to erase those things?
Huh? Yeah, they're,
That is a question for Barry, because he worked with mine and because I have a Barry will be here, Barry will be here next week. Well, you know, you really need it,
oh, see, that's last month's agenda. This would be this month's.
and then the print. So you can turn it on and.
Larry, did you bring your tablet? Pardon? Did you bring your tablet? No, I didn't. Don't really feel bad. I left mine sit on the table at home.
He can look at mine.
Right on the table.
Get the old hard copy out.
Nothing on the agenda anyway, is there?
Not much.
Pretty straightforward tonight.
Not much.
Got it out there.
Huh?
You have a lot more on
Here,
yours
turn
than
it
I.
sideways.
Yeah, but you have a lot more
To
still.
turn it, there, you got, yeah,
Now they're all there.
you got it sideways, got longer room.
Is today's on here too?
Yeah.
You got more than I do.
Don't you?
Well, everybody's is different, I guess.
Now, see, that one they didn't put in there.
That's last month.
That's last one.
Right.
That was on mine. I had it on mine.
You did, how'd you get it?
I
Talk
don't
to
know
the guy.
how I got it. I had to
The
play
guy,
around.
the guy.
Guy.
Pressed the little
Trouble is,
Kindle.
sometimes I got some of it. I don't remember how I got to it. You know?
Use them today, but
Oh, you just keep looking.
How much? No, we're not ready yet.
Then how did you get it? Oh, then you gotta think.
You
How'd
gotta
I get it?
remember, yeah, or ask somebody that knows how to use it.
Russell knows how to use it. Yeah.
Oh, Maroon 5.
Got yours turned on.
And now he goes and pushes it down on me.
You gotta put it in the second one. You guys are ready to go. I haven't got mine don't turn on yet. No, I don't have
when are you having that?
my finger crossed today and nothing happened. So I gotta push harder. I don't know. You gotta plug it in.
Calendars, so I don't.
Yeah, that's what they told me.
Yeah.
I got 78% battery, so I'm good for tonight.
Yeah. No. Push the button. Push the button and hold it.
Come the other way.
2-3 seconds and let go. And then it'll come on.
Go around and
So then you go off, go off. Push the button again. Hold it.
I just have the
And it'll come up.
They said you could go ahead and
Or it'll say cancel
second
or
thing,
okay.
or the second. Oh, I have to wait till Sunday because
Hey, Everett, it's time for the meeting.
you look at it, you want, let's there, you have a bunch of fun
I
in there.
know, that's it.
Anyway, those are the songs that we grew up with.
Jane thinks that's a
Christmas, Denver, and all that kind of stuff. Won't be
So
like
it's
some of
7
them.
o'clock or 8 o'clock, what does it say?
Ever considering that we're all getting old.
2 o'clock.
Because those were songs we grew up with.
Afternoon thing.
He's so and he doesn't even know what's going on.
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Look how she's got hers all painted up there. She's got all decorated and everything else, her computer. Look at that.
That's
Got it
just
all
got a cover.
decorated. Look at that.
That's just a new cover.
I bought my own. Eat your heart out, Mike.
I got one too.
Yeah.
And I've got
Mine's at home on the kitchen table. I forgot I walked out and left it there.
I'm telling Ruth.
Keller, I don't care. I don't care, Keller.
Nashville. Oh, who am I on? 156.
Time.
Yeah, real quick.
The Land Information Council would have met tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. They didn't notify me last time.
Kelly, wasn't he? He was a nice guy.
Yeah.
I really liked him.
Ready?
Can I read this while we're?
I don't think so.
During my report, you can have it, I believe.
Oh, yeah, but
Mine?
you weren't signing it.
It's yours.
meeting to order. Melanie will do roll call.
Mrs. Krantz? Here. Mr. Heisey?
Here.
Mr. Tim?
Here.
Mr. Papp?
Here.
Mr. Exton?
Here.
Mr. Weddy?
Here.
Mrs. Claudia?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Wade?
Here.
Mr. Buckerman?
Here.
Okay, let's stand for silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we need an approval of the agenda.
I so move.
Motion by Weddy, second by Cap. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval of the minutes of the January 17th, 2017 monthly meeting.
Motion approved.
Motion by Bob Wedel,
I'll second them. I knew I wasn't here, but I read them.
second by Bernadette. Are there any questions or comments concerning the minutes? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we'll move on to public comments, and Bob Welch would like to speak.
Hello, hello. Just 1 minute on the Evergreen Campsite zoning change. Jim Button couldn't be here tonight. His mother passed away this weekend. He's just coming back from the funeral this evening. Just wanted to pass along a couple things. Half of you, I think, are on the Planning and Zoning Committee and understood that we had a great hearing and unanimous approval. Town board was unanimous. None of the neighbors have objected. The Lake District is in favor. And I think I can say the zoning office, the comments were all favorable as well. This is sort of an area that was has been zoned incorrectly for a long time. So it's just straightening that out, and Evergreen Campsite runs a very high-end operation, and this will just add to the value of that for them and for the whole community in terms of jobs and economic activity for the county. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have no unfinished business, so we'll go right on to new business, and Ruth Zowski will give her annual report. And ask lots of questions when she's done. She likes that.
Well, I'm going to give you all the answers beforehand, so you won't have any questions. Okay, so probably for the last, yeah, that's fine. Probably for the last 4, 5 years, we've been talking about the lawsuit involving the County I Bridge and the Highway Department. And last year I reported that it was completed and that it had gone through the Court of Appeals and it had gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court denied it, and we sent off our check. Well, in October, the check was returned to us, and with a note from another attorney indicating that they would be filing something in the near future, and we haven't gotten anything. So last week, the attorney who represented us contacted me and said that he got a contact by Congressman Grothman's office. And so I said, yeah, go ahead and talk to him. This is what I know. And he said that the congressman's office said that they had gotten a call from an individual complaining that we had not paid him. So he told the congressman that we had paid him and it was returned. I sent a letter to the new attorney to find out what was going on. I have not heard back from him yet, but that all happened last week. So the saga continues. We have an outstanding lawsuit still with a former inmate that was claiming inadequate medical care. That's been going on now for about 2 years. Our attorney has filed a motion for summary judgment, but the federal court has not made any decisions on that. The inmate also had filed some motions requesting additional time and wanting more information. He keeps bouncing from facility to facility, so his paperwork doesn't catch up with him, and then he misses his deadlines. And he's not real good about notifying the court where he's at, because I had to tell them one time where he was at because they called me looking for him. So that's still ongoing, but I expect it will be resolved as soon as the court has an opportunity to look at the motions. We did receive a claim last year against the Sheriff's Department related to an accident where an individual was hit by an intoxicated driver. The claim alleges that the Sheriff's Department did not properly investigate it and placed blame on the victim. It was filed by the victim's father. The document's been turned over to the insurance adjuster, and we have a new insurance adjuster. Her name is Lori Szwiski, who took over for Jeff Grip, who was with us for a long period of time. So she is looking into that, and there has been no further developments and nothing further from the father. There is an ongoing lawsuit between the drivers, so maybe they're waiting for that to resolve before they get back to us. In 2016, we collected over $94,000 for various departments, and that's a total between trip and payment plans. So, like for instance, the money that we received from the Department of Revenue was almost $62,000, and the rest of it is just people making payments to us on a monthly basis. So we're continuing to do that. The bulk of it, of course, is for EMS. We collected almost $82,000 for them, and then the rest of it is just the other departments and what is owed to them. We did complete our performance evaluations for our staff based upon the goals from the strategic plan and have entered in all of the information for the next go-around. We entered into an agreement with a company focusing on HIPAA compliance. So about a year and a half ago, we brought to you our first internal audit document and our risk management plan that the departments internally did. And as part of that, one of the things that we noticed in our internal controls was that we weren't doing enough testing with our computer systems to make sure that they were secure, and we weren't necessarily, some of our policies might not be quite as good as they needed to be as far as what we would do for disaster recovery and how we would respond to a breach if somebody's private healthcare information happened to be hacked into. And so this company focuses solely on those types of security issues. And one of the reasons that we went with an outside company is because the feds keep changing the rules on which parts they're focusing on, and so it's hard to stay up to date with all of this stuff. And so we have a company that does just that, and it really was a good price. It was just a few $1,000s, and considering that right now the office of, it's OCC, and I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but they're the office under the federal government who does HIPAA violations. They are no longer willing to work with you to make you compliant. They're just issuing fines. And so we've already had one HIPAA violation complaint against us. That was several years ago. And at that time, they just wanted to see our policies and our training documents. It was not a security breach. It was based on the privacy policies. And so we were able to work through all that. But the next time, we're not going to be so lucky. And they are targeting small entities. There was a small county in Minnesota that got audited, and there are a couple of counties in Wisconsin who have received letters from them saying that they're going to be looking for information. So apparently the first step is you get this letter, and it says send us all your policies, whether there's been a report of a breach or not. And they are just looking for something to go for. So hopefully we will not have any penalties, and we'll stay ahead of the game. Over the last year, I have been a presenter at the Department of Aging's Aging Mastery Program, and I talk about powers of attorneys for healthcare and finance, and we talk about end-of-life decisions. So I've done that twice already, and I'm doing my third presentation for them on Thursday. And also last year, I was an independent examiner for Winnebago County for a grievance that they had on a termination. And I handled a Board of Adjustments matter for Waupaca County. In exchange, Waupaca County sent an attorney down here to represent our Board of Adjustments on a matter, and Winnebago County handled a CHIPS matter that I couldn't handle because it involved some former employees. So we're able to save some money that way. by working together. That's all I have.
Any questions for Ruth? Thank you very much, Ruth. Good report. Next, we have the Sheriff's Office Annual Report. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You want to start, Deb? You can.
Sure.
We have the annual report, and of it shows our staff allotment or our assignments and that. We're up to 55 full-time authorized full-time positions, I should say. Right now, as of 7:13 this evening, we are short of 2 dispatchers. Otherwise, we're fully staffed in the jail, on the road, and in the office. Next slide, Deb. The major projects we had for 2016, daily training bulletins. We work with a company that provides and helps manage our policies and procedures. And we started a part of that program that's called Daily Training Bulletins. What it is the company puts out a short scenario. It's like a paragraph or 2 of a situation. They take our policy for the situation and they ask the question. So what happens is the deputies log in, they read the scenario, they read our policy, and then they answer the question with regards to the policy and how it works out with the scenario. Every month, the 15th of every month, I get the daily training bulletins. I review them, I take the test myself, and then I issue them to all the sworn personnel, and they go through. And this is a good way for us to use and incorporate our policies in a excellent training setting. And with Lexipol, a company that we work with, the State Department of Justice Training and Standards allows us to write off 4 hours of training time by using these daily training bulletins. So instead of just having a manual with 155 policies in it and say this is it and this is what we work with, we are actually using these policies, and the people have to log in and they have to show they are proficient in knowledge and know the policies that they have assigned to them. We're in the process of getting the daily training bulletins up and running for the jail staff. The jail has their own custody manual that they deal with too, and so we'll be doing the same thing with the jailers in a short time. During 2016, we did work out an agreement with the town of Marion. We were putting a deputy in the town for approximately 20 to 25 hours a week. We worked out an agreement so that the start of this year, we have a deputy that's assigned to the town of Marion, patrolling the township, and the town of Marion pays 100% of the wages and fringe benefits for that deputy. So it's a win-win for both entities. The town of Marion is getting increased patrol hours, and we're getting a deputy assigned to a township that has the highest calls for service in the county. And it's helping us out tremendously and takes the pressure off the rest of our cars that are working throughout the county. We've stepped up and we've increased our leadership training program. All of the supervisors and administrators, we're working with the Department of Justice to do some online courses. There are some courses that are offered where they go and spend 1 or 2 days at a meeting or a conference and get training, but we are trying to establish a leadership training program in our office. The Celebrate computer program, this is a computer software and hardware setup that allows us to get information from cell phones and tablets. Everybody has a cell phone nowadays, and there's a lot of information that is used, and in our criminal investigations and prosecutions, it's very helpful to get that information from these devices. The computer program that we have allows 2 of our deputies who are certified in using that to to get that information, and for us to use that evidence, we get a search warrant, like we would get a search warrant for any other evidence, or we get a consent from the owner of the device, and then we go in and we get that information. It is quite helpful, quite useful, and two of our people are certified for that program. So the other thing, the other big project that we had is we're switching from what we use for squad cars. We're getting away from the sedans and we're going to SUVs. Both Ford and Chevrolet make SUVs that are rated for police work. They're designed for the heavy-duty use that we use the cars in, and they are also what they call police rated, so we can use them for high-speed enforcement, high-speed driving. What's nice about the SUVs is we are getting the all-wheel drive SUVs, which is great in the wintertime. When we have the heavy storms, the heavy snowfalls, we put the people in the SUVs, and there's pretty much not a place that we can go in the county. We used to be restricted during the real heavy blizzards that with the regular sedans, we were very limited to where we could go, and a lot of times we were just restricted to the state highways because those were the only roads that were plowed. Now we have the capabilities of going anywhere in the county during the height of any snowstorm. We took advantage of going from the sedans to the SUVs to go with the new design for the decals on the car. And the other big advantage of the SUVs is we have a lot of interior room. The deputies driving the vehicles have a lot of room. They sit up higher. It's easier for them to get in and out of the vehicles, which in the long term will help eliminate back problems. And with all the equipment we carry, the back of the squad has the room to carry everything, and it's accessible for the deputies to get into. Deb, next. This is the design that we've gone with. This happened to be Leif Hendrickson's vehicle, so that's the school resource officer. Deer decals are on there. Otherwise, the four Ford Explorers that we have coming, and we should start to see next month, will be black like this with the yellow letters on the side. A couple of things about this design. We are keeping the decals on the doors, and we're not going the full length of the body. What we have encountered with our present decal design runs the whole length of the body, but when we hit a deer, and the deers usually come off of our grill guards, they come back and they slap the front quarter panels. So when we get those repaired, we're looking at a couple $100 to get the decals to match up after the body shop has repaired that fender. With this design, if we're replacing front quarter panels, we're not replacing any decals, so we're saving ourselves a couple $100, and we can use that elsewhere in the fleet budget. The other reason the other switch we've gone is we've gone to black. In the past, we've tried to maintain one constant color throughout the fleet, and we've liked to, in the past, we started out with trying to keep all of our cars the same color tan, or a dark or a lighter brown. But if anybody is familiar with buying new cars, colors change from year to year, and it's the same for us when we order police vehicles. So the only standard true colors you can really get for a police car are black or white, and that's why we decided to go with black, because that's going to be constant no matter what year or what make of vehicle we're looking to get. So this is the change that we've gone with for our cars, and you'll start to see those, especially now with the new fleet starting to hit this summer. So next. I want to start off with our drug investigations. Nate Koplecki is our drug investigator. He's been very busy. In 2016, we had 4 overdoses resulted in death, compared to 3 traffic fatalities. This is the first time that I've been in this county that we've had more people die from drug overdoses than on our roads. It's way too many. That figure, that 4, could have been a lot higher, but our county EMS carries Narcan, and I don't know the exact number, but it's in the double digits of the number of people that have been revived survived by our EMS crews by the use of Narcan. So if it wasn't for the EMS carrying that drug, we would have had double digits on deaths from heroin in this county. The drugs that we're seizing, heroin, methamphetamine, THC, which is marijuana, but then there's a lot of prescription drugs. The Xanax, Suboxone, oxycodone, Adderall, Vyvanse, morphine, and methadone are all prescription drugs. We're facing more and more abuse of prescription drugs than from the illegal drugs that you can purchase on the street. We're part of the drug unit, the Central Wisconsin Drug Task Force, and from that, we are partnership with them, but we've used over $6,000 in the process of purchasing undercover drug transactions, and this is reimbursed by the MEG unit, so there is no cost for us when we're doing these drug deals. And the trend that we're seeing is increase in the use of heroin and methamphetamine and a decrease in cocaine. Cocaine isn't really seen a lot, but methamphetamine is becoming more and more prevalent. Approximately 10 years ago, methamphetamine was big in the north and the western part of the state. Now it's creeping back in and it's covering the whole state. Next slide, Deb. This is one of the handouts that we handed out, but this is numbers from our task force for the past 3 years. It just kind of shows where we're at with the number of investigations, number of arrests, forfeitures, and then the types and amounts of the different drugs that we're seeing from the task force. Next slide. This is just a 3-year comparison, but this compares our office with the other PDs in the county, and as you can see, we are by far the busiest agency. The PDs, when you're running with maybe 1 or 2 people in the villages, they're not really covering they don't have the ability of covering their villages and that, and plus we have a larger area, a larger population we serve, so naturally we're going to have a higher number of calls. For 2016, we assigned 8,800 case numbers to our people. Next slide, Doug. Average calls per day. In 2016, we averaged just over 24 calls a day. That includes everything from a barking dog to domestic abuse cases, emergency detentions, traffic crashes, any what we call a call for service, where a citizen calls in and wants us to respond and help them with their case. So pretty standard for the last 3 years. Next slide. This is another handout that you have, but this came just last week. This is the Uniform Crime Report. This is something that every law enforcement agency in Wisconsin submits to the Wisconsin Department of Justice every year. It's a breakdown of all the major crime categories. This is the same information that anytime you hear people talk about the FBI crime statistics, this is the information that the FBI is referring to. Every state submits this information to the FBI, and the FBI uses this in their crime reporting statistics, and this is what we have for Waushara County. Again, they have a 5-year average. The red numbers, or the numbers in the red boxes, are numbers that are higher than what is average, and then the blue numbers, or the blue boxes, are numbers that are lower than the average for those different categories. This is a preliminary report. It came out, but Sally Soroka, our crime reporting person, doesn't really see much changes in this and that, so this is pretty good figures for our office. Again, this is just for our office. It does not include the city or the villages. They do their own crime reporting. Deb? A big part of our job is civil process. For 2016, we served over 719 papers or civil processes. These could be writs, could be subpoenas, could be court actions. And from that, we collected over $19,000, almost $20,000 in fees. There are some people that we don't charge fees. The district attorney's office, if people come in and they have an indigency, if the court says they're not able to pay, we don't charge them for fees. But the average citizen and law firms and that do get charged a fee, and that's what we have collected for this year. We're also, in the next slides, I'm also showing what we've kind of had for the previous 2 years in that too, so you can kind of take a look and see what we've had for kind of a average or what has occurred over the years. Next slide, Bill. Our dispatchers last year took over 42,000 calls. That's an average of 116 calls a day. Of that 42,000, 36,000 were administrative calls where people call in and want to talk to myself, an investigator, talk to the office staff about getting open records requests, or other agencies calling us looking to speak with our people. Next slide. 911 calls. This is when anybody dials 911, either on a landline or a cell phone. We had over 6,000 calls. It's an average of 16 a day. Emergency medical dispatching. This was the first year that we were fully implemented with EMD, and we had over 2,100 calls where people called in with a medical emergency, and our dispatchers were able to give them assistance, give them instructions while EMS was on its way. Our staff has become quite comfortable with the EMD process, and they do a good job with that. Next slide. Inmates. The jail, when we book in an inmate, it could be the same person. We have repeat customers, so it couldn't necessarily be, we didn't have 1,200 new people that we were booked in the jail. Some are repeat customers, but each time they're arrested and brought in, that's a booking, and we had over 1,200 bookings, and of that, 904 were males and 362 were females. So, types of charges, we had 139 felonies booked in, and then 658 misdemeanors. Our average population, and this is something that we keep track of, to both Public Safety Committee and to the State Department of Corrections, but our average population has been 80 inmates last year. That's up 10 inmates from 2015. The busiest days that we have are Mondays and Tuesdays. It's usually the people that are brought in from the weekends. We're processing them, and by the time they get ready for a court appearance, if they don't bond out, they're coming to court on Tuesdays or Mondays. The busiest times are 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and then from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. The 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. is a lot of dealing with court or dealing with people book and release. The 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. is a lot of programming we have, whether people come in and have classes or have sessions. A lot of our evening time is spent with that. Traffic crashes. We had 343 people that ran into other vehicles, ran into other obstacles, and we had 339 that ran into deer. So we're just about even with between car deers and everything else. Citations. These are traffic citations that our people issued. Ordinance citations are the county ordinances, such as animals loose, and the ordinances that we enforce, some vehicle ordinances. The biggest are probably our animal complaints, either animals loose, dog bites, or vaccinations not on record. And we also had 24 DNR citations. Investigations, we had over 100 sex offenses. Sex offenses can be a broad category, but anytime somebody is violated, we classify as a sex offense. Robberies, we had no robberies last year. Ever.
Can you give us any reason why it doubled in, as far as the sex offenses?
What we're running into is pretty much everybody's got cell phones, including people that are underage. High school kids, junior high kids have cell phones. What we're running into a lot of is they're taking pictures, inappropriate pictures of themselves or girlfriends, boyfriends, or whatever. And when they do that, it becomes crime. And a lot of this is coming out of the schools. And a lot of it is mandatory reporting. But the biggest problem is cell phone devices and the way people are using them. Whether when you have a picture of somebody, person that's under 18, and they're nude, doesn't make a difference if it is taken by a 15-year-old boyfriend or a 50-year-old man. Still child pornography, and we still have to deal with it. Next slide. Burglaries. Burglaries are on the increase. We believe that's attributed to people with drug addiction problems. This is something we're seeing across the state. People with drug addiction problems aren't working. They can't hold a job, and to get their money, they're breaking in and they're stealing things. Assaults, we had no assaults last year. Suicide threats. This is where we had 60 of those, where people call our office or we're made aware of somebody that's talking about harming themselves. We classify it as a threat. Attempts are people that have taken that next step and have taken an action to harm themselves, whether by overdose, cutting themselves, or some other way to harm themselves. And we had 10 of those that we dealt with, not including what the villages had or the state patrol. Domestic abuse cases, we had 57 of those. Disorderly conduct. A lot of the disorderly conduct are those that are under the influence and act out either in a public setting like a bar or elsewhere. And disorderly conduct is kind of a cover-all charge. It covers a broad category of behavior, and that's why that number's so high. Agency assist. This is where we go and back up village officer, we back up a state trooper, back up the DNR warden. We had 270 times where we assisted another law enforcement agency. Emergency detentions, we had only 27 of those. I was surprised when we were putting that together, but we have been working really close with our human services crisis team, and our crisis people are coming up with more safety plans and other alternatives than a lot of the true emergency detentions. Would that be a correct statement, Ruth? So that's the reason for that drop in those numbers. We had 32 missing person reports. It covers the whole age scale, so you can't say it's truly children or it's not elderly people. Most of these we take the reports, but they are located eventually, and there's no harm or foul that has occurred. Earlier I mentioned one of our major projects was the Cellbrite program. The two detectives that we have trained in that last year did 53 cell phone and tablet device examinations. What's really nice about this is before we had this equipment, we were taking our devices to other agencies throughout central Wisconsin. Sometimes we were being charged by those other agencies for their service. It always involved us going outside of the county to Wapaka, Portage County, Winnebago County, to go to another agency that had the ability of examining these devices. So we had a lot of travel time. We had a lot of downtime. We had a lot of money tied up with just taking these devices to these other agencies. We would wait because it wasn't their device they were working. They would do their things first, and ours would be last, so there would be considerable time involved before we would get our equipment looked at. Now with us doing this in-house, we're not costing us anything. We don't have time and expense in traveling around the central part of the state to deliver these devices, and we're getting them done much quicker, which results in our investigations getting completed quicker, and it's just a win-win for us. We had 7 drug recognition examinations. Sergeant Zach Gunderson is trained and certified as a drug recognition expert. Every officer in Wisconsin, including our deputies, is trained and has experience and training with detecting people that are operating in a motor vehicle while under the influence of alcohol. There are standard tests, there's observations that we make, but we're running into more and more people that are operating vehicles while they're under the influence of drugs. And you don't, with people operating under the influence of drugs, you don't get the smell or you don't get the odor of alcohol on their breath. They act differently, and there's certain things that they exhibit that make it hard to determine what they're operating under. Sergeant Gunderson can come out, he can talk to the people, he can do tests with them, and he can determine which class of drugs they're operating under, which helps us get a conviction for operating while under the influence of controlled substances. It's a excellent program. He is one of the few in Wisconsin that's certified as a drug recognition expert. Right now, I believe there's approximately 150 law enforcement officers in Wisconsin certified as drug recognition experts. The U.S. Department of Transportation and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation pay for their training and for the class, and it's an excellent program, and they are looking to get more and more people certified as drug recognition experts. Any questions?
One of your first slides, you mentioned that when we got the heavy snows, only the county roads were plowed. Some of the town chairman would differ with you.
Well, what I'm talking about is the height of the storm, and what we encounter, what we encounter, and I'm a town chairman too. So
I know.
Not picking on the town chairman, but during the height of the storm, like if it were snowing tonight, right now the only plows that would be out would be Brian's crews that are out on the state highways. You do it, I do it, but we won't send a plow out until after the storm or early in the morning. So during the night, if we have to get on Bighorn and 15th, we're running into roads that aren't plowed, and this is where the all-wheel drive SUVs have proven themselves to be invaluable by allowing us to do that. And we're not here to knock any township.
No, I know you weren't.
Yeah, but I mean, it does make a difference, and a lot of our back roads, are slippery from November till April, and this year we got lucky, but that all-wheel drive difference does make it easier for us to get around. We're not getting stuck as often. This year with all the ice storms we had and the regular sedans, we were getting stuck, and we were relying on plows helping us get out or tow trucks coming to get us out too. So that is the advantage that we are looking forward to.
Some days I had both trucks in the ditch.
Yeah.
Luckily not at the same time.
Yeah, it was a tough, this winter was tough with all the ice storms, and we were the ones that suffered just like everybody else. Any other questions?
I'd like to let the board know that Celebrite equipment was a donation, a $26,000 donation from a citizen here in Waushara County that enabled us to get the Celebrite equipment.
Yes, that was done through Crime Stoppers, and one of the residents stepped up and made a sizable donation, and it's really helpful. So again, this is a case where we worked with the citizens, and they helped us out, and they got us. We talked in our office. We talked every day that we're amazed what this equipment can do and the capabilities it has. We get updates. I think about every 2 weeks we get an update from the company that has the equipment, and that update takes 2 to 3 hours to get. I mean, that's how fast this technology is changing, but this company is keeping up with it and keeping abreast of the changes, so it's invaluable when it comes time for investigations.
Any other questions?
Anything happening on cameras as far as for the personnel, or hasn't that been brought up anymore?
Body cameras, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, we're pursuing it right now. The costs associated with it, the time and effort to implement it is a big expense. Agencies that have done it, it's one thing for a small, like for the Wild Rose Police Department to do it. They can do it relatively cheap and inexpensive. For an agency like ours, it's very costly. The larger agencies, you're talking initial purchase, some of the larger PDs, you're talking purchases of $500,000 for the body cameras, but then you're looking at a yearly cost of anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 for server storage or cloud storage, and that's the cost. That's a yearly cost. There's been less pressure from both the federal government and the state government for forcing body cameras on the law enforcement, and as far as I'm concerned, it's just fine. Our squad cameras are serving us quite well. They're proving that our people are doing the job right. They've been invaluable in court cases, and I don't see the need to go to body cameras right now at this time. Anything else?
Else? Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Jeff. Administrative Department.
All right,
Annual report.
last one, I'll go fast. All right, so I'll deal with the administration. Is it all right if I just stay here and so I can use the mic and run the laptop? Are you okay with that? All right.
Do we have a vote?
You don't need to vote. All right, so 2016, we had, actually for a small department, we actually had quite a bit of transition. So Sean Kelly was our GIS property lister, and unfortunately we lost him to his battle to cancer last year. Zach Newton, actually, he moved into Sean's place, and then Andrew moved into Zach's place. So there was some major changes there. Also, during 2016, we were getting ready for Mike Abbott's retirement, and so we hired Barry West mid-year, and he was here to help with that transition. And I'm happy to say that transition went very smoothly. Mike actually came in the office today to help answer some questions that Barry had. So Mike's just a trooper. We have a resolution on the agenda tonight to recognize his retirement and service for the county. So administration, we do day-to-day operations, human resources, IT, and then the GIS land information. It's a odd combination of things, but we seem to be able to make it work. We have 21 different departments in Waushara County. We have 415 W-2s. There's actually more employees in that, but we had that many W-2s processed last year because people are coming and going all the time. So we had 57 new people start that we went through orientation last year. We had 44 terminations. You probably look at that and go, that number doesn't really add up. It's because people are recruiting for part-time, a lot of very casual positions, so it's not necessarily that you're generating an opening. It's just that, like in the EMS world, we're always looking for part-time people to work in that department. Payroll was over $12 million. We supervise all the benefits, and we make sure that the policies are updated and following federal and state rules. Last year, our workers' comp, we have spent $295,000. We are just undergoing the audit right now. I haven't gotten those final numbers, so that might go up a little bit. It might go down a little bit. But that's what we've spent as of this date. Our liability insurance, where we've been with County Mutual for a long time, it's $179,000 last year. Last year they did add cyber insurance coverage, so if we do have a breach, we have insurance in place to help cover that. They did not increase the cost of the insurance; they just took on that. Property insurance, $81,000. Crime is $1,600. Health insurance, it's a combination of what we pay for the health insurance premium and then what we give the employees for their health savings accounts, and that's $2.74 million. Unemployment, 13,000. We are very aggressive in fighting unemployment, but sometimes you just can't win. Equipment breakdown, 6,000, and then our short-term disability that we have for our non-union and full-time employees was $39,000 last year. So for the IT side of it, Barry and Mike they deal with the computers. We're on a voice over IP telephone system. They do copy machines. We actually lease copy machines, but they help make sure that those are running. We have faxes. Now we're into the tablet world. You guys can say thank you very much. We help the Sheriff's Department with the cameras in this building and out at the jail, and storage is always the big thing, is how do you store all that data? So our mission is to use the best solutions to provide the best possible services. It was short and simple, and we try to encourage and value an environment that provides high-quality supportive services. On the GIS and land record side, we have 32,000 parcels. Our square mileage hasn't changed. We haven't annexed Green Lake yet. We have 26 municipalities. We average 9 ownership transactions per day. So that went up a little bit from the year before. That group maintains all our mapping, and they are in the process of updating the GIS website. Zach has actually been talking to vendors about how is the best way to approach that. So during 2016, we expanded our use of ADP. We got into the performance evaluation world. We've gone through our first round. Now we're getting ready for the 2017, putting the goals in. It was a lot of experimentation and trial and error. We had, before ADP was up and running, we tried to do it with seamless docs, and it got people into the groove, but it definitely was not the right format for that. The ACA world, the Affordable Care Act you hear so much about, we did do all of our forms for 2016, and it worked really very well through ADP. Like the first year was a nightmare. This year worked pretty well, and of course now that we've got a system down, they'll maybe repeal that. We replaced the storage array network. Again, that's the storage system. We have a lot of data, and so it's critical that we keep that system in place. And they also worked with, Ruth had mentioned the HIPAA folks, they also worked with that group to make sure that breach we're mitigating and minimizing any problems in that area. We replaced the backup system last year. We went through, I think, pretty much all of the strategic planning that we'll do, at least for the time being, and then perhaps we'll update that from time to time. Informacast installation, so that's the system that we can make public announcements. So if there's something going on, it could be an emergency, it could be a storm warning, it could be just that the computers are down. We're able to make announcements throughout the entire county system. If there's a VoIP phone, if one of our phones is in that room, you can make an announcement through it. We've been talking about the camera project for the jail for a long time, and it's about 95% complete. So Mike's goal was, before he walked out the door, that that camera project would be complete, and unfortunately he did not meet that, so he was kind of bummed about that. And we did update policies last year. Some of the things that I do on the risk management side is, I'm always looking at different safety equipment and what's working best for departments. We do an annual safety training. There's things that are mandated by the state and feds, like bloodborne pathogens and SDS, which is safety data sheets. So there's certain trainings that are mandated every year, and we make sure that we get that training to people. And we also really developed a new employee orientation system that they're getting that when they walk in the door. They're getting all of that right away. We had 32 worker comp claims. 16 of those 32 actually rose to the level that it was an OSHA 300 marker. It hit that marker, and our state modifier is at 0.71%. So what that means is if you're paying $100,000, if your workers' comp is a $100,000 bill, you multiply it by that state modifier. So that $100,000 bill just went down to $71,000. So you want that state modifier to be as low as it can be. So we've been hovering around the 7.7, 0.75 area for a couple years now. The lowest I've had it over my career was 0.58, and it's never been over 0.78. So Waushara County has a very good attitude about safety, and you save money when you do that. It's very healthy for the employees and for the economy of the county. Other things that we deal with, fixed assets, tracking that. I make sure the bonding information is updated every year, policy development, legislative advocacy. I'm a member of the Workforce Development Board and the Selective Service Board. I help out with economic development. I have been in partial hearing officer for a couple of different counties, so there are counties that owe us favors in that area also. So things that we're still working on still is that darn camera project. The performance evaluation system is always going to have things that we have to work out, and that's going to change from year to year because, you know, the goals need to be updated. So we're in the process of transitioning to administrator. So I'm starting to train people. I did a lot of day-to-day things, so I'm starting to train staff on how to do some of those day-to-day things. We are also transitioning to a finance department, so that my office does a lot of finance, so related issues. So at some point we're going to have some discussions about that. And that's it. Any questions? This is my last one. Come on, guys. This is my last annual report.
All I can say is I don't know how many thank yous you're going to get for the tablets.
Yeah.
We've been running into
Probably
a
not,
few issues.
yeah. That's true.
Do you have any questions for Deb? No? Wow. They'll call you up after you retire. They'll call you up and ask the questions. Okay, maybe. All right, thanks, Deb.
Sure.
All right, next we're going to go to discussion of possible action, motion action item, sorry. And first is the electronic device use agreement.
So that was approved by the executive committee at the last meeting. I actually have some signed copies from some of you already. But this was the policy that was, or the agreement that was designed and approved by exec.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Weddy to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Eckstein. Do you have any questions concerning the agreement? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then before you leave tonight, if you could sign your document and give it to Deb, that would be appreciated. Next, we're going to the 2017 Fire Wardens as proposed by the Department of Natural Resources. That was in your packet. Motion by Bernadette, second by Mark Kirschner. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have resolution number 020217, acknowledgement of Mike Abbott's service to and retirement from Waushara County. Motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Weddy. I think it's hard to, I mean, you know, when Mike is in the building because he's smiling from ear to ear.
He's very happy.
Yeah, very, very happy in his retirement. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, ordinance number 607, ordinance amending Waushara County zoning maps pursuant to the authority granted in Chapter 58, Waushara County Code, Zone Change, Evergreen Campsites and Resort Incorporated, Town of Springwater. Motion by Kirschner to approve, second by Eckstein. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Are there any board suggestions for future agenda items? One thing I will report on, and that is we are currently waiting for bids. Let's see. LifeQuest gave back the building, the South Annex, which you probably all know, but we're waiting on a couple of, or some bids. The highway department did give us a bid, but we decided to, advertise it, and so we're waiting on that for the demolition. So it will be a parking lot, which is much needed. So that's all I have. Anyone else want to share?
I guess at our last town board meeting in Springwater, we got the cart ahead of the horse, and we passed a resolution to adopt zone change for Evergreen. So I don't know if it has to come back to us yet, or whether,
You get the last kick at the cat. Check with the boss, she'll tell you.
okay, whatever.
Anything else?
I never got any agenda, this month's agenda on my tablet.
You didn't?
Send it when I'm here, because I don't have Wi-Fi in my house.
Okay.
Huh? What did you say?
Said I got it about 5 times.
Well, sure, you took Pat's. You have yours and Pat's and Jerry's. Well,
All right, so Jerry did not get it. Pat, did everybody else get their information
Most
or
of
not
it.
sure?
Most of it, not all of it.
Okay, interesting.
well, I was talking to Mel tonight, and what she's gonna try and do is put it all in one packet, and send it all at one time, so you don't have
Separate things.
separate things. So, and I think that'll work out a lot better.
I also suggested a labeling, if there's separate things, to label them a little bit more clearly.
All right. Barry is gonna be here. Please try to use your tablets, and Barry is gonna be here at the next county board meeting, I believe, to do another training now that we have an idea, a little bit more of an idea of what we're doing, so.
So, will we still get paper, at least me, for,
I don't know, you wanna do paper one more month until Barry does that training? Let's do paper one more month and then we'll go from there. Because Mel really doesn't send them out because she delivers them to, so. Okay, we'll do one more month with paper and then we'll have the training with Barry again and then we'll see how that goes. Right?
Okay. We had 13 applications for the administrator position. The executive committee will meet tomorrow to go through those applications and decide what they want to do for next steps. So it's moving along.
One other thing, this fact book for the high capacity wells, is this the one that came up, was put out by the ag people?
I think, I don't know who put them in your mail slots, but they were all in your mail slots today, so I think it's the one that we had talked about at other meetings by the Vegetable Growers Association, maybe. So I'm not sure if it came from UW Extension or where they came from.
Pass something on, the lake people would be in disagreement that this is a fact book, just so. Want us to take it with a grain of salt, so that's all.
I have one more thing too. I don't know, do you all get the loose ends?
Yeah.
That really is a good magazine, and we have to congratulate Commission on Aging because their kitchen is 5 years old now, which doesn't seem possible. They're plugging along and doing a good job, so, but I love this newspaper. Anyway, so if you're not getting one, call the Commission on Aging and have them put you on the mailing list. Right.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion by Eckstein, second by Tim to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Deb,
And vote on 39.
thank you for your report because
Well,
I just realized while you were.
I said we should explore it.
Tell you, Link,
The executive committee,
It was Ben that I ran
executive
into.
committee voted to get them.
It was Ben.
Hey, Russell,
So if you have his email, could you send it on to
One
me
more
so I
month
could
of paper.
apologize to him?
I
Did you
got
think he
a
was like
forever
Ryan
stamps
Winslow?
that we're gonna get.
I couldn't believe it didn't work.
It just hit